Maxima's core value is to continue to elevate the sports we participate in. PEAK stands for Performance Enhancing Additive Chemistry. One of the core competencies of Maxima is producing high-performance product. Working with these athletes and race teams exposes our engine oils to higher levels of stress and allows us to look at how well the hardware like gearboxes and clutches can handle the elevated loads and speed.
Hi, and thanks for tuning in. This is Dirtbike Magazine's 2026 450 MX comparison, and yes, it is the largest shootout ever. As it happens, there are more 450 motocross bikes available in the U.S. than ever before. We have 12 bikes to sort out. We've heard people say it's impossible to test this many bikes in one day, and that's absolutely correct. We wouldn't even try. This is a project weeks and months in the making. In some cases, we've been riding these bikes for over a year. 5 of them are completely unchanged from last year's 450 shootout. 4 others have mechanical changes, while only 3 are completely new to us. Before ranking them, we had to settle on methodology and priorities. We left the bikes as delivered. This year, we have provided ratings in 10 key areas with 1 to 5 stars as rankings. We have peak power, power delivery, electronic options, front suspension, rear suspension, stability, cornering, comfort, components and details, and value. First, let's talk about them individually in alphabetical order. Beta 450 RS has a base price of $10,990, and we weighed it without fuel at 237 pounds. The Beta is in its second year now, and it's still evolving as the company learns from the Supercross team. For 2026, it got a new head and intake, as well as a new exhaust system and mapping. It still features KYB suspension and Nissan brakes. For peak power, we gave it 3 stars, and for power delivery, we gave it 3 stars again. It's not the fastest, but it's in the hunt. Big improvements this year in mapping, and the bike is truly easy to manage. It can still stall easily in slow speed stuff. For electronic options, 2 stars. There is no means for the end user to alter tuning beyond the 2 maps provided, and mapping is still not perfect at low RPM. Front suspension, 3 stars, and rear suspension, 4 stars. It's clearly aimed at real-world riders, novices, and vets. The KYB fork is cushy, although faster riders might have issues with dive. Stability is 4 stars, and cornering is 2 stars. You can see the bike's off-road heritage here. It's more stable and secure the faster you go, but the Beta is a large, tall motorcycle, and that can be a handful for shorter riders. For comfort, 2 stars. The bodywork isn't smooth. There's some vibration, and the seat is hard. Components and details, 3 stars. Value, 3 stars. Beta is now a legitimate part of the motocross world and is clearly looking to find a place in the amateur ranks. Pros might be frustrated because there's still very little knowledge about how to take it to the highest level. Next, the Ducati Desmo 450 MX. The base price is $11,495. Weight without fuel, 234 pounds. Ducati might be new to motocross, but certainly not to racing at the highest level. The Desmo 450 has its Desmodromic valve system, Showa suspension, and sophisticated traction control. The hydraulics are Brembo, and the tires are Pirelli. Peak power, 3 stars, and power delivery, 3 stars. It's smooth but soft on the bottom. The motor likes to be revved. It has some jerkiness at the very bottom. For electronic options, we'll give it 3 stars. Ducati's smartphone tuning system allows some engine tuning, but the connectivity will cost extra. Front suspension, 2 stars, and rear suspension, 3 stars. The front feels soft and stiff at the same time. You're not sure which way to go when you're tuning. The rear half of the chassis, on the other hand, has some inherent flex. For stability, 3 stars, and for cornering, 3 stars. The Ducati goes where it's pointed and feels reasonably light. For comfort, 2 stars. For components and details, 3 stars. It has a very hard seat, some vibration, and the Pirelli tires were no one's favorites. For value, just 1 star. Just about everyone agrees that the Ducati is a beautiful motocross bike. Its power and weight put it right in the thick of things, which is impressive for a first try. But it doesn't top any particular category, and expectations for this bike are very high. Next, GasGas MC 450F. The base price is $10,849. It weighs 229 pounds without fuel. GasGas represents the most affordable option from the Austrian KTM group. It has the same engine and frame as the KTM and Husqvarna, with new graphics for 2026. Compared to the others in the family, it has softer suspension settings, brake tech brakes and hydraulics, Maxxis tires, and an optional rather than standard map switch to keep price down. Peak power is 4 stars and power delivery is 5 stars. The GasGas has the same motor that powers the KTM and the Husky, but it's held back slightly by setup, mapping, and equipment. Electronic options gets 2 stars. You have to pay extra for a map switch. The front suspension is 3 stars, and rear suspension is 5 stars. Overall, the GasGas is set up for amateur level riding. The WP Exact air fork is very adjustable, but needs constant monitoring and can be harsh for small impacts as well as big hits. Stability, 4 stars. Cornering, 5 stars. The GasGas is exceptional in turns, it feels light, and it's very predictable on acceleration. For comfort, 3 stars. The cast triple clamp and bars transmit more feedback to the rider than you really need. Components and details, 3 stars. The Maxxis tires are limited to medium terrain. Most other parts are pretty high quality. For value, 3 stars. GasGas has the same key attributes as the best bikes on earth, namely that KTM engine and frame. To call it a budget brand is not accurate. It's still a pretty expensive motorcycle. Honda CRF 450R. Base price $9,699. The weight is 237 pounds without fuel. Following a thorough frame revision last year, the Honda CRF 450R returns largely unchanged for 2026. The handlebar switch offers 3 engine maps and multiple traction control settings along with launch assist. Honda has no engine tuning app through any kind of smartphone connectivity. Peak power on the Honda is 3 stars, while power delivery is 4 stars. The Honda has incredible low-end power, then tapers off a little early on top. For electronic options, we'll give it 3 stars. Between 3 maps and multiple levels of launch assist and traction control, the Honda has options galore, but we would still like to see some means of custom tuning. For front suspension, 4 stars, and rear suspension, 4 stars. Honda now has one of the best suspension packages in the field. For stability, 4 stars, and cornering, 5 stars. Overall handling is excellent, although it favors tight tracks more than broad sweeping terrain. Comfort is 5 stars. Components and details, again, 5 stars. Honda knows how to make a motorcycle feel right, whether you're tall or short. For value, we'll give the bike 4 stars. Honda kept the price unchanged in the face of new tariffs, and now is one of the least expensive bikes in the class. For the Husqvarna FC450, we have a 2025 base price of $11,399. For the 2026 factory edition, the price will be $13,799. The weight without fuel is 229 pounds. For 2026, Husqvarna does not offer a standard edition of its FC450, only a factory edition. For this comparison, we used a 2025 model because there are still leftovers available. In most ways, it's very similar to the 2026 KTM 450 SXF, but it does feature reduced seat height. For peak power, 5 stars. For power delivery, 5 stars. This remains the best engine in the motocross world. It has power coming out of its ears, and yet it's very manageable. Nothing else puts it all together quite so well. For electronic options, 4 stars. We like that you have 2 maps, quick shift and launch control, all available on the bars. And we also like the fact that the Husqvarna Connect app gives you engine tuning options as well as access to LitPro telemetry. But you have to pay extra for all that. Front suspension, only 3 stars, while rear suspension is 5 stars. The suspension is slightly shortened in order to provide a lower seat height, which most riders love. The air fork still has some traits that most riders don't love. Stability, 5 stars. Cornering, 5 stars. Overall handling remains another strong point. In turns, the Husky might even be the best bike in the 450 class. Comfort, 5 stars. Components and details, 5 stars. Brembo brakes, ODI grips, Dunlop tires, Pro Taper bars, the Husky has nothing but the best stuff. For value, only 1 star. The Husqvarna remains one of the greatest 450 race bikes you can buy. At the end of the day, though, this is still a 2025 model, and that will affect resale price down the road. With a little luck, though, deals might be out there. Kawasaki KX450. This has a base price of $10,599. The weight without fuel is 239 pounds. The Kawasaki KX450 is unchanged for the 2026 model year after having a major revision the year before. At that time, it got connectivity with the Kawasaki Rideology smartphone app. It features Showa suspension and a Nissan hydraulic clutch. It also has a Nissan rear brake and a Brembo front brake. Peak power on the Kawasaki rates 3 stars. Power delivery rates 5 stars. No one will accuse the Kawasaki of being the fastest bike on the track, but it remains the most friendly and easiest to ride. For electronic options, 5 stars. Kawasaki now has the Rideology smartphone app and joins Yamaha in providing the connectivity unit at no extra cost. Front suspension, 4 stars. Rear suspension, 5 stars. We think Kawasaki has aimed the KX450 at vets and seniors. It's a plush bike, although pro riders might need more aggressive suspension tuning. For stability, 5 stars, and for cornering, 5 stars. This is what has endeared the KX450 to the dirt bike staff for years. The overall stability is the best in class without sacrificing the sharp turning manners that tight supercross influenced tracks demand. Comfort gets 3 stars, while components and details get 3 stars, and value gets 3 stars. If you look at back issues, it's no secret that we have had a long love affair with the KX. This year, it starts off with a fairly high price, but at least you get smartphone connectivity for free. It's worth pointing out that Kawasaki has one of the most generous contingency programs in the business. Now we have the Kove MX450. The base price is $7,999. The weight without fuel is 234 pounds. Last year, Chinese maker Kove broke out in the rally world, and now it's happening in motocross. The MX450 has a steel perimeter frame, a KYB 43mm AOS fork, and a UN shock. The exhaust system and foot pegs are made of titanium. For peak power, we give the Kove 2 stars. For power delivery, 3 stars. The output of the bike is exactly what it needs to be, and it's competitive in the motocross world. The mapping is a little rough down low with considerable popping, but no stalling or flameouts. For electronic options, 1 star. As of right now, the Kove only offers 2 maps. There is no provision for engine tuning at the consumer level. Front suspension, 3 stars. Rear suspension, 2 stars. The KYB fork is in the hunt, but the rear shock is harsh. We have heard that Showa internals will fit inside the Yuan shock body, and that good suspension tuners know exactly what to do to make it right. For stability, 4 stars, and for cornering, 4 stars. We have absolutely no complaints about the Kove's overall handling. It's very KTM-like, which is a good place to start. For comfort, 3 stars. For components and details, 3 stars. This bike was originally conceived as a factory edition with all its titanium and anodized pieces. The importer decided it would come with all those items as standard equipment. For value, of course, 5 stars. We are absolutely stunned at the quality of the Kove, especially considering that the price includes a 35% tariff. It has obvious shortcomings, but they all seem easy to fix. If you hate it because it's from China, that's your prerogative, but you're in for some very unhappy years ahead. We expect more from Kove and more from other manufacturers in China. Now, the KTM 450 SXF. It has a base price of $11,649. The weight is 229 pounds without fuel. The KTM 450 SXF is unchanged for 2026, but at least it's here after the company survived a very challenging year. The 450 SXF remains a benchmark for all the new manufacturers coming into the market, and you can plainly see its influence throughout the industry. Again, we have peak power for 5 stars and power delivery for 5 stars. We'll say it again. This is the best engine in the motocross world. It has power everywhere, and it's still easy to use and very effective in absolutely stuffed trim. For electronic options, we'll give it 4 stars. On the handlebar, you have all the features that have become standard, and if you step up to purchase the optional connectivity unit off-road, you get more tuning features as well as access to Lit Pro data for a fee. Front suspension gets 3 stars and rear suspension gets 5 stars. We still have immense respect for the engineering of the WP Exact Air Fork, but it does hold the KTM back at the highest level. It's worth pointing out that the 2026 Factory Edition has cone valve suspension. Stability, 5 stars, and cornering, 5 stars. Overall handling is once again excellent across the KTM line. It's light, it's narrow, and it's very easy to throw around. Comfort, 4 stars. Components and details, 5 stars. The brakes, hydraulic clutch, wheels, and tires are all tops. Value, 2 stars. This year of tariffs hit European manufacturers especially hard. Even so, KTM is eating most of the price increase. Let's be honest, KTM has long been pushing the upper boundaries of what people expect to pay for dirt bikes. Suzuki RM-Z450. Base price, $9,399. The weight without fuel is 239 pounds. The Suzuki RM-Z450 is now going on 8 years with no mechanical updates. That's most visible in the lack of an electric starter and hydraulic clutch. The RM Army option sweetens the deal with a Pro Circuit pipe and graphics when that incentive is available. For peak power, the Suzuki gets 3 stars, and for power delivery, 4 stars. It has a sweetheart of a power band, but it's not especially fast. For some riders, that's part of the RMZ's appeal. For electronic options, 2 stars. There is some engine tuning capability through the GET system, but it's a little clumsy and outdated. Front suspension, 4 stars, and rear suspension, 2 stars. It's frustrating. The Suzuki was frozen in place with a shock setting that's still very harsh. It's fixable, but that detracts from the RMZ's main appeal, which is affordability. Stability, 3 stars, and cornering, 3 stars. This is the bike that set the standard for cornering in the early years of 4-strokes. It handles as well as ever, but now others in the field have caught up. For comfort, 3 stars. For components and details, 3 stars. The Suzuki is well made with high quality bits and pieces, and you'll never have a dead battery. For value, 3 stars. We can't give the Suzuki an especially high rating for value despite its low price. It gives you fewer features and requires some further investment to make it as good as it should be. Plus, Suzuki dealers are asked to tack on a $300 tariff surcharge after the MSRP. Still, there's a great bike in the Suzuki just waiting to be released. Now the TM450 MXFi. This has a base price of $12,199. The weight is 241 pounds without fuel. TM is a beautifully handcrafted Italian motorcycle that has been without an importer in the US for several years. Now, 71 Power Sports has stepped in to allow custom orders. There are dozens of options, and the model we have here is the Course Edition, which adds more to the already high MSRP. Its most notable features are the fuel tank location under the seat, a hand-welded aluminum frame, a KYB fork, and a TM-made shock. For peak power, 3 stars. For power delivery, 3 stars. The old-school power delivery takes us back to the days when 4-strokes were known to find traction in the worst conditions. The TM is super smooth and effective, but not especially thrilling. For electronic options, 1 star. The TM uses eMotocom EFI programming, which is very rare and somewhat obscure, so experts expertise is going to be hard to find. Front suspension, 4 stars. Rear suspension, 2 stars. Suspension is a mixed bag. The TM-made shock is stiff and makes the bike a little bit difficult to dial in. Stability is 4 stars and cornering 3 stars. The TM feels like nothing upsets it or knocks it off course. Conversely, it does feel big and somewhat cumbersome in tight turns. For comfort, 2 stars, but for components and details, 5 stars. This is a beautiful motorcycle, but the hard seat and rigid frame take a toll. The value is 1 star. But if a low price is high on your priority list, you're not looking at a TM. This is a motorcycle for people who want something exclusive and special. The high price is probably part of the attraction. Now the Triumph TF450X. It has a base price of $10,395. The weight without fuel is 233 pounds. When Triumph introduced its first 450 motocross bike in 2025, it was the RC Special Edition, and it had a long list of high-end parts. At the time, there was no standard model. Now there is. It might not have the bling of the RC model, but it does have upgrades to the clutch, gearbox, and engine mounts. It still features KYB suspension, Brembo brakes, and a map switch. For peak power, we'll give it 3 stars, and for power delivery, 3 stars again. Triumph clearly prioritized ease of riding over brute strength. The peak power and smooth roll-on are straight from the Kawasaki playbook. For electronic options, 4 stars. The TF450X has a big handlebar switch that gives you options like quick shift, traction control, and launch assist. Additionally, you can purchase a connectivity unit to give you more features through the Triumph MX Tune Pro app, but it no longer comes stock. Front suspension, 3 stars, and rear suspension, 4 stars. This year, the suspension has a little harshness that's difficult to tune away. For stability, 5 stars, cornering, 4 stars. Right from the start, overall handling has been the greatest strength of Triumph's dirt model. The TF450X is as stable as they come, and it feels light and compact in turns. For comfort, 4 stars. Components and details, 4 stars. All the bits and pieces on this bike are top-notch. It bucks the Eurobike tradition of stiff frames, stiff seats, and harsh manners. Of all the extras on the RC edition, the one that we missed most was the use of Dunlop's MX34 tires. For value, 3 stars. Triumph's leap to the top rung of motocross has been astounding, and we respect the fact that it comes in as the least expensive Eurobike without sacrificing quality in any way. Now, the Yamaha YZ450F. This has a base price of $10,299. The weight without fuel is 231 pounds. Yamaha engineered a number of significant changes into the 2026 YZ450F that might not be apparent at a glance. The frame is new, the shock is new, and the intake has been redesigned. This year, Yamaha also broke down and gave the YZ a hydraulic clutch. Our test bike had the 70th anniversary graphics, which add $200 to the price. For peak power, 4 stars, and for power delivery, 5 stars. Yamaha might have lost a little peak power for 2026, but the result is a much more pleasant, easy-to-ride motorcycle. It's still a beast, but it's a beast with table manners. For electronic options, 5 stars. Yamaha started the trend towards high-tech tuning features with the Yamaha Power Tuner smartphone app. The bike still comes ready to talk to your phone with no extra purchases required. The front suspension, 5 stars. The rear suspension, 4 stars. Once again, Yamaha has the favorite overall suspension setup for advanced riders. For novices, vets, and less aggressive riders, it's a little bit on the stiff side and you might have to make a few adjustments. For stability, 4 stars. For cornering, 4 stars. This year, Yamaha got the biggest advancement with the smallest changes. The new frame gives it much more stability everywhere on the track without sacrificing turning ability. For comfort, 4 stars. For components and details, 5 stars. The build quality on the Yamaha is outstanding, and for most riders, the new hydraulic clutch is a welcome upgrade. Value, 3 stars. The 2026 YZ450F is one of the most expensive Japanese motocross bikes, but you aren't shortchanged anywhere. After all the riding was done, we took the bikes to Pro Circuit where Nike ran them on their DynoJet dyno. The bikes were run on the standard map with the standard airbox covers. The results confirmed what we already knew. The KTM powered bikes were as strong as ever. So how do they stack up? When we were all done, the podium at least was clear. First place goes to the revised Yamaha YZ450F. For us, Yamaha finally hit on the steering mannerisms that we have been wanting for years. The frame changes for 2026 made it much more stable and well planted, at the same time as decreasing the rider effort needed to initiate a turn. The motor also became less of a beast. Now you don't need to detune it in order to make it rideable for mere mortals. Second place is the KTM 450 SXF. There's no getting around the fact that it has the greatest engine to ever power a dirt bike. The KTM is light, it handles flawlessly, and it remains the bike that newcomers in this industry see as the benchmark. Not surprisingly, the nearly identical Husqvarna is third. This still might be considered a winner for riders who need a little less seat height, but remember, this is a 2025 model, and once those supplies are gone, the only 450 Husky that will be available will be the factory edition at its more traditional seat height. After that, the picture is less clear. We've provided all the data you need to dive into and provide your own rankings based on your own priorities. Some people care more about value than performance, and some might be drawn to the excitement of an all-new brand. For more on all these bikes individually, go to dirtbikemagazine.com where they all have individual reviews. And special thanks go to the dozens of people who helped put this project together, including our managing editor Mark Tilley and videographer Travis Fant. More thanks to Glenn Helen Raceway, Lori Wilson, and Bud Feldkamp. I'm Ron Lawson, and thanks for watching.